All 10 upcoming Star Wars movies, ranked according to the chance they'll happen. The cinematic future of Star Wars looks admittedly bright given the 10 projects in development, but the unfortunately common production issues Lucasfilm has faced under Disney make some more unlikely to happen than others. The last decade has been massive for Star Wars. Not only was the sequel trilogy released, but the franchise also staked a claim on the small screen via Star Wars' various TV shows. After a fairly lengthy break from the big screen, Star Wars' upcoming movies are set to return the franchise to its former cinematic glory. This pivot away from movies to TV shows came as a result of the sequels being some of Star Wars' worst-ranked movies by audiences. The divisive nature of Star Wars, The Last Jedi and Star Wars. The Rise of Skywalker specifically saw Disney switch focus to TV shows like The Mandalorian. Since 2019, Star Wars' success has been solely confined to Disney Plus after the controversial reaction to the sequel trilogy and the troubled productions of Lucasfilm's anthology movies. While upcoming Star Wars shows are still expected, the galaxy far, far away is set to return to the theater. This is certainly exciting after a recent hiatus, but the production issues that plagued the anthology movies and the sequel trilogy still loom large in the minds of audiences. For this reason, many of the confirmed upcoming Star Wars movies are unlikely to ever come to fruition, despite some being certainties of the next few years. Not even 6 months after The Rise of Skywalker, it was announced that Taika Waititi would write and direct a Star Wars movie. Waititi worked on The Mandalorian Season 1 as a director and the voice of IG-11, leading him to pitch a new Star Wars film that strayed from the confines of the Skywalker saga. It was announced that Waititi would write the film as he filmed other projects like Thor, Love and Thunder. Fast forward 3 years to 2023, and the film still did not have a script amid rumors of it being canceled. Regardless, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy confirmed that the film was still in development. It was reported that Waititi would continue working on the script after the DVJ strike of 2023 was resolved, yet little has been heard of the film over a year after the strike ended. When combining this lack of news with Waititi's last few projects being lesser received than his earlier work in Hollywood, this film is the least likely of Star Wars' upcoming movies to actually happen. In 2020, it was announced that a Disney Plus series centered around Lando Calrissian would be developed. After a long period of inactivity on this project, it was announced that the original showrunner, Justin Simien, was stepping down from the project. This came with the news that the actor responsible for young Lando in Solo, a Star Wars story, Donald Glover, would team up with his brother Steven to turn Lando into a Star Wars feature film. It seems Lucasfilm is placing more stock in other movies, making Lando an unlikely probability. This was last confirmed in September 2024, yet no news has been provided since. While the concept of a Lando movie written by the Glover brothers is overly exciting, the inactivity regarding the project's development between 2020 and 2023 is cause for concern. Moreover, it seems Lucasfilm is placing more stock in other movies, making Lando an unlikely probability. In November 2022, yet another Star Wars film was announced to be in development by director Shawn Levy. It was reported that Levy would begin active development on the project after working on Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine and Stranger Things Season 5. As was the case with Waititi's movie, the DVJ strike of 2023 halted early development, but Levy remained steadfast that the film would happen. As of the end of 2024, Levy has already completed work on Deadpool and Wolverine. Similarly, Stranger Things Season 5 is expected to wrap shooting in early 2025, with the installment being released later that year. With that in mind, Levy should have the time to commit himself to a Star Wars movie in 2025. making this project more likely than Lando or Waititi's film. That said, it remains to be seen whether Levy begins work on another MCU movie after Deadpool and Wolverine's success, or whether he will outright confirm full development with Lucasfilm has begun. Despite being the most divisive Star Wars movie of all time, Star Wars: The Last Jedi caused Lucasfilm to have a great deal of faith in writer-director Rian Johnson prior to the film's release. This faith and clear love for Episode VI of the Skywalker saga was rewarded with a deal for Johnson to craft an entire Star Wars trilogy. Like Waititi's film, these 3 movies were set to be removed from the mainline Star Wars saga. Then came the storm. Lucasfilm's pivot away from the original script for Episode EX that tied closer to The Last Jedi than The Rise of Skywalker did proved how reactive the studio can be, reducing Johnson's chances of returning. The Last Jedi split the Star Wars fanbase in 2, and it still has not recovered 7 years later, throwing Johnson's trilogy into doubt. Stepping back from Star Wars as a result, Johnson began working on the Knives Out trilogy for Netflix. Despite claims from both Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson that the trilogy will happen once the latter finishes his work with Netflix, it does not look hopeful. Lucasfilm has proven to be reactive to fan outcries since operating under Disney, rendering the chances of a figure as controversial as Rian Johnson returning to Star Wars unfortunately slim. In November 2024, the Star Wars fandom was struck with massive news. Simon Kinberg is developing a Star Wars trilogy. Rumors spiraled between these 3 movies being Episodes XXI and XVII, or simply another standalone trilogy of stories devoid of Skywalker saga connections. Regardless, it seems the reports are true and Kinberg's series is in the works. As the most recent announcement on this list, Kinberg's trilogy already holds more credence than Johnson's trilogy, Lando, or the movies in development by Levy and Waititi. Lucasfilm and Disney would not let these rumors and reports circulate if they were not true, meaning the likelihood of this coming to fruition is, for once, quite high. 2025 will undoubtedly be a big year for confirming or damning whether Kinberg's films will blossom, but at the moment, they cannot be written off like some other prospective projects in a galaxy far, far away. If this list had been written a year ago, Rogue Squadron would be dead last regarding the ranking of how likely it is to happen. However, the long-dormant film, based on Star Wars video games, received new hope in March 2024. Rogue Squadron was first announced to be in development by director Patty Jenkins, and was said to be the next Star Wars movie after The Rise of Skywalker. After a troubled early production schedule, Rogue Squadron was repeatedly pushed back until being shelved indefinitely, which many thought to mean it would never see the light of day. That said, in March 2024, Patty Jenkins revealed to Collider that she and Lucasfilm had reignited their initial deal just before the DGA 2023 strikes happened. Jenkins stated that this meant she was back working on Rogue Squadron and intended to deliver a script to Lucasfilm. This was a result of the New Look DC Universe by James Gunn, which removed Jenkins' commitments to work on Wonder Woman 3. With that film dead, Jenkins turned her attention back to Star Wars, making Rogue Squadron more likely to happen than it has been in years. The remainder of this list consists of Star Wars movies that have at least a 65% chance of happening. Where Rey Skywalker's New Jedi Order story is concerned, this Star Wars film hits that mark well. The film is simply more likely to happen than not given the big deal of its announcement, the return of Daisy Ridley as Rey, and the attachment of Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy as director. Admittedly, the loss of Stephen Knight as the film's screenwriter dented the hopes that it would come as soon as 2026, but it should still see the light of day. Before Stephen Knight's departure from Rey's New Jedi Order project, it would have been ranked higher than James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie. Instead, this development, as well as some rumors that have been circulating, have changed its favor. Mangold was announced as the writer-director of this movie, set 25,000 years before Star Wars. Episode I, The Phantom Menace, at the same time as Rey's return was confirmed. This came with the caveat, though, that Mangold had to finish work on Indiana Jones 5 and A Complete Unknown first. After work was completed on these two projects, it was up in the air whether Mangold would work on his Dawn of the Jedi film first, or the DCU's Swamp Thing. Rumors at the tail end of 2024 have claimed that Mangold has chosen Star Wars as his next project, which, when combined with the addition of Anders Bo Williman as screenwriter, makes this film more likely than ever to actually happen. Hopefully, some concrete information that Mangold will be shooting this film next will be given in 2025. Until then, the signs look promising. Ironically, the film announced to be coming by Dave Filoni, alongside Dawn of the Jedi and New Jedi Order, has received the least in the way of concrete updates, yet is still the most likely to happen of the three. The reason for this is Filoni's sheer importance to Lucasfilm of late. In 2023, Filoni was made the chief creative officer of Lucasfilm and began steering most creative projects, from TV projects like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka to Star Wars movies like The New Republic story he was revealed to be writing. Filoni is not going anywhere, and neither are his stories. Filoni's work has also been mostly praised by critics and fans alike, including both his recent live-action work and animated projects. Therefore, Filoni is not going anywhere, and neither are his stories. This film was said to culminate the events of Star Wars' New Republic timeline, stemming from another upcoming movie and Ahsoka Season 2. After Filoni finishes production on the latter, work will undoubtedly begin on his first directorial Star Wars feature film. The most likely upcoming Star Wars movie to happen is The Mandalorian and Grogu. Announced in January 2023, The Mandalorian and Grogu's production has gone incredibly smoothly, with the film having wrapped filming by December 2024. Post-production has already begun, and the film is on course to meet its May 2026 release date. With such an untroubled production, The Mandalorian and Grogu feels unfamiliar, but it will usher Star Wars back to the big screen, 7 years after the franchise's hiatus began.